Bubba, a young bobcat, arrived at the Rocky Ridge Wildlife Rescue when he was just 3 months old, accompanied by his sibling. They had been left behind by a struggling zoo that could no longer care for them, and found themselves in an unfamiliar place, malnourished and wary. As they adjusted to their new environment, they stayed close to each other, relying on one another for comfort, while the rescue staff worked hard to help them settle in. The team at Rocky Ridge had seen many rescued animals, but they quickly realized that these two bobcats were unique. While Bubba's sibling adapted fairly quickly, showing a cautious confidence as it learned to climb and play, Bubba took a different path. He was more hesitant, often searching for reassurance. You could see it in his keen golden eyes, which followed the rescue staff from a distance. Unlike his sibling, who seemed content just to survive, Bubba was looking for something deeper, a connection beyond just basic needs. The staff recognized this familiar longing. Some animals, even those from the wild, form bonds that go beyond instinct. Bubba was searching for a home where he could truly feel safe and connected. When the time came for his sibling to leave for a new life at a well-established wildlife sanctuary, Bubba watched, feeling a sense of loss as his only companion was driven away. While the sanctuary was a perfect fit for his sibling, the rescue staff understood that Bubba needed something different. He needed a place where he wouldn't just survive, but thrive. Meanwhile, in West Jordan, two brothers, Gus and Daniel, had been thinking about adopting a pet for months. Gus, the older brother, had a practical approach. He loved animals but was aware of the responsibilities involved. Daniel, on the other hand, craved a deeper companionship, someone he could bond with beyond the usual family pets they had growing up. He wanted something special, perhaps a creature that was wild yet devoted. One evening, while browsing adoption listings, Daniel stumbled upon a post from the Rocky Ridge Wildlife Rescue. The image was simple, a young bobcat looking right at the camera, its tufted ears perked up and golden eyes locked onto the lens. There was something about Bubba's gaze that pulled at Daniel's heart. The description highlighted the bobcat's desire for companionship, his longing for connection, and the challenges he had faced. "Gus, you need to see this," Daniel said, turning the screen towards his brother. Gus glanced at the picture of the bobcat and let out a slow breath. "That's different," he admitted. "But remember, this isn't like adopting a regular pet. A bobcat isn't a house cat." "I know," Daniel replied, already immersed in research about bobcat care. "But look at him. He's not just another wild animal. He seems to be searching for something. What if we could be what he's looking for?" Gus wasn't completely convinced, yet he didn't dismiss the idea either. In the following days, they dove deep into research about bobcat care, everything from diet and enclosure needs to behavioral patterns. They read first-hand accounts from people who had successfully raised and bonded with bobcats, discovering the mix of challenges and rewards that came with such a commitment. Every article, forum, and expert consistently conveyed the same message. This was not a decision to take lightly. Yet the more they learned, the more Daniel grew confident he could manage the responsibility. He wasn't after a novelty pet. He wanted a true companion, just as the bobcat needed one. Gradually, Gus began to see it too. He knew his brother well. If anyone could form a connection with a wild animal, it was Daniel. After much thought, they reached out to Rocky Ridge Wild Rescue. The rescue team was cautious, understanding this was no ordinary adoption. However, after several discussions, they agreed to let Gus and Daniel meet Bubba in person. The brothers embarked on a 3-hour drive to Idaho, their car filled with supplies, blankets, treats, and even a book on feline behavior that Daniel had been poring over. As they drew near, anticipation began to rise. What if Bubba didn't like them? What if they weren't the right fit after all? Yet, Daniel held on to a quiet confidence. He believed there was a connection between him and Bubba. Upon arriving, the rescue staff guided them to Bubba's enclosure. The young bobcat lay on a platform, his sleek coat shimmering in the afternoon sun, ears flicking as he sensed the new visitors. As they approached, he lifted his head, locking eyes with Daniel. For a moment, no one moved. Then, to the staff's surprise, Bubba slowly rose and took a few tentative steps forward, curious yet cautious. He made his way closer to the fence, his eyes locked onto Daniel's. Bubba never left Daniel's side as he sniffed the air, watching him closely, almost as if he held a secret that others didn't understand. The rescue staff exchanged looks. Bubba was usually cautious around new people, but this felt different. Daniel crouched down, speaking softly. "Hey there, Bubba." The bobcat blinked and let out a quiet chuff, a small, breathy sound that sent shivers down Daniel's spine. It wasn't quite a purr, but it was close, a sign of greeting, a recognition. Gus, standing next to him, let out a low whistle, shaking his head in amazement. "I think we just found our match," he said. Daniel shared his awe, realizing they couldn't leave without this unique creature. Touched by the bond they shared, the rescue staff finalized the adoption after all the necessary paperwork and precautions were checked. As they prepared for the long journey home, Bubba was placed in a secure carrier. However, just 10 minutes into the drive, he managed to wiggle his way out. Instead of panicking, he climbed onto Gus's lap and nuzzled into his chest, producing a deep rumbling sound neither brother expected from a bobcat. He settled in comfortably, keeping watch over the road and occasionally stretching his paws across Gus's arm during the 3.5-hour drive. Once they arrived home, Bubba wasted no time exploring his new environment. He followed Gus and Daniel from room to room, curiosity lighting up his face. Over time, the bond between Gus and Bubba strengthened significantly. Bubba mimicked Gus's movements, tilting his head in the same direction and mirroring his expressions. He even trotted outside after Gus, embodying a presence that captured everyone's attention with his graceful movements. A few months later, their family grew again with the addition of a tiny black kitten named Enks. At first, they wondered how Bubba would react, but their concerns quickly vanished. The moment Bubba laid eyes on Enks, he gently wrapped his large paws around the tiny kitten, as if he had always meant to be his guardian. From then on, Bubba looked after Enks with fierce devotion. Whenever the kitten played too close to something risky, Bubba would either nudge him away or carry him to safety. At night, they curled up together, with Bubba's thick fur providing warmth and comfort for the little kitten. Over the next 2 years, Bubba transformed into a stunning, powerful bobcat, his thick coat gleaming and reflecting the love he shared with his new family. Bubba basked in the sunlight, his strong muscles reflecting the time he spent climbing and playing. Despite his wild beginnings, his bond with Gus was unwavering. He followed Gus everywhere, waiting by the door when he left for work and greeting him with excited chirps upon his return. Bubba's playful spirit was infectious, always ready for an adventure, whether it was exploring the backyard, hiking with Gus, or simply lounging in the sun. Daniel often joked that Gus and Bubba spoke their own unique language, communicating through subtle gestures and sounds. There was truth to that. Bubba seemed to understand Gus better than anyone else. He responded to Gus's voice with flicks of his ears and slow blinks, creating a special connection between them that transcended words. Their story spread throughout the town, with neighbors and friends surprised at how well Bubba adapted to his new life. Initially skeptical about raising a bobcat in a home, Gus and Daniel showed that with the right care and respect, even a wild spirit could belong in a loving family. As the years passed, Bubba thrived, and his bond with Gus and Daniel deepened. He became more than just a rescued bobcat. He was like a brother, a guardian, and a lifelong companion. Each day reminded Gus and Daniel of that fateful meeting and the undeniable connection they shared. Bubba, despite his size and wild instincts, was surprisingly gentle, especially with the people and animals he trusted. He particularly enjoyed the company of children, greeting the neighborhood kids with curiosity and allowing them to pet his thick fur under Gus and Daniel's watchful eyes. Parents, initially wary of having a bobcat nearby, found themselves charmed by Bubba's calm nature and protective instincts. Bubba and Ons formed an inseparable duo. The once tiny black kitten grew into a sleek, agile cat, but still looked to Bubba for comfort and guidance. They often played together in the yard, chasing leaves and pouncing on shadows. Ons could frequently be found leaping onto Bubba's back, riding him like a miniature panther. Bubba didn't mind. In fact, he seemed to take pride in the game, trotting around with his little companion perched on his shoulders. Gus and Daniel watched, knowing they had created a truly special family. Bubba's needs were carefully attended to, starting with a spacious outdoor area where he could climb and explore safely. They even constructed a custom wooden structure that included platforms, tunnels, and perches. This provided Bubba with plenty of spots to jump, hide, and observe his surroundings. It wasn't unusual to find him basking in the sun for hours or stretching out lazily while Onyx curled up beside him. One of Bubba's favorite activities was hiking. Gus often took him on trails through forests and mountains, where Bubba could wander on a leash, immersing himself in the scents and sounds of nature. Hikers would often do a double take at the sight of a bobcat walking alongside a man, as if they were just two friends enjoying a leisurely stroll. Bubba moved with the confidence of a wild cat, but stayed close to Gus, always aware of his companion's presence. As seasons changed and the years passed, Bubba remained a constant part of their lives. Through storms and sunny days, quiet evenings, and grand adventures, he was always there. Onyx was his loyal shadow, while Gus remained his steadfast companion, and Daniel observed with a sense of amusement. Together they created a unique family bond, a connection defined not by blood, but by trust, love, and the unbreakable ties of fate. Regardless of what lay ahead, one thing was clear. Bubba had found his home, and he would never be alone again.